Good morning, everybody. Glad to see you. We have made it to another hump day. It is Wednesday. Today, we got some crazy stuff to talk about. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Good morning, everybody. We've got a follow-up to a story that we had the other day. You remember the couple we talked about that had the ammunition in Turks and Caicos? Turks and Caicos has a law on the books that you cannot import ammunition into their country. You just can't do it. You just cannot bring it onto the island. It's a 12-year minimum sentence. They're serious about their gun laws, folks. I mean, it's just the way it is, folks. The way things are here is not the way it is everywhere. So we've had another incident. Another guy well, here, let me just play the video for you. And this really is sad. I mean, it really is just sad seeing this happen. I mean, it's tearing families up, but Jesus, people, pull your head out.
Tonight, 30-year-old Tyler Wenrick is the latest American behind bars in Turks and Caicos, arrested after 2 bullets were found in his backpack as he was about to board a cruise ship Saturday. The Virginia EMT and father is now facing the potential of a mandatory minimum prison sentence of up to 12 years.
I feel like as a very honest mistake that 12 years is absurd.
His wife, Jerry Ann, says he'd been on the island for less than a day.
My son's only 18 months old, and I just don't want him to grow up without a dad.
There are now at least 4 American tourists potentially facing lengthy prison sentences, and a 5th who served nearly 6 months after what they say was mistakenly bringing ammo in their luggage while on vacation. 40-year-old father of 2, Ryan Watson, is now out of jail on bail. He was arrested at the airport April 12th when security found 4 rounds of hunting ammo in his carry-on.
Did you check the bag before you packed it?
We did. I opened it up.
Now, before we get into this, I want to make a correction. When I did that story, I never use a single source, and I'm not blaming the source. The source was spot on. They really were. I never use a single source because if I have to reread a story multiple times, I get it right. On that story about Watson and his wife being arrested in Turks and Caicos, I used a single source. I did. I was in a hurry, and I made a mistake, and I screwed up. And I'm not Fox News. I don't do corrections on page 7 in the middle of the night when nobody notices. I want, what we're doing here is important. Information is important. Credibility is important because we're fighting a war over information and ideas. We have got to be righteous. When I did that story, I read that story and it said 4 rounds of ammunition. When I read it and took it as 4 pounds of ammunition. And that's what I said in my show, 4 pounds. It was not 4 pounds. It was 4 rounds, 4 individual rounds of ammunition. And I just want to clarify that, make that correction so that you understand. Because that was one of the things that took me back was like, you don't mistakenly have 4 pounds of ammunition is about that big. It's a bag about that big. Okay. 4 rounds of ammunition. That's, their shell, if they're hunting ammunition like he's talking about, their shell's about yay big. They're about yay big, depending on the caliber and what which round we're actually talking about. They're from about yay to about yay big. Still, it's irrelevant. You're going to another country. Respect the other country. Understand their laws. The way we look at guns here is not the way other countries look at guns. Other countries are not okay with this ammo-sexual cosplay of that we have that's just fervent here. We just had Texas allowing teachers to carry guns into the classroom without telling the parents. That is not acceptable anywhere else in the world. It's just not. Peter Campbell says, this is yet another reason our gun and ammo laws need to be more stringent. Of some of us so lazy about keeping very close track of his ammo. True. I mean, that's what that was. It was a screw up on his part. I'm sure he was not trying to import ammo into Turks and Caicos with, carrying 4 rounds. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's the law there. It is just the law. And we have to stop doing that, folks. That is the biggest knock. Most people love Americans because we're super freaking friendly people. We're overly friendly people. We are. The biggest knock we get is our arrogance when we travel. I travel, folks. I do. I travel. Mrs. and I'm going to make an announcement here in the next few days. We're about to take another trip. I won't be here for a week. I like to travel. The biggest knock I hear about Americans when we travel is we think everywhere we go is America, and that everywhere we go should act like America. And just because we have a point of view on things, everybody in the world should bend to us. And that's just not the case, folks. It's just not the case. It really isn't. That's where the whole ugly American thing comes from. And this is a real tragedy. It is a real tragedy. These families obviously were not trying to do anything nefarious. They were just lazy and stupid. If I'm going to travel internationally, if I'm going to travel anywhere outside the United States of America, and it's a habit I do. I usually do it when I travel locally also because it's just a habit. I open every part of my suitcase, every section, and I run my hand through it. Not because I'm out traveling with freaking ammo and loose ammo and stuff like that. It's just a habit. Just a CYA. And I'll tell you, when we had troops stationed in Iraq, one of the big things that went on there was family members that, Iraq is a Muslim country. You cannot bring pork products into Iraq. People were intentionally putting in their care packages pork as, a thumb in their nose at the Iraqis. Folks, we have to stop that. I mean, we just have to stop that type of behavior. And that's what these families are dealing with. Yeah, they're facing 12 years. That is a long damn time. That is more than some murderers get in this country. But folks, we really have to start respecting other people and respecting their points of view. We just do. But I wanted to clarify that. I did make a mistake on my show the other day, and God love you folks. You are the best. Y'all are really the best. I cannot tell you how many emails I got. I loved it, man. Sharon Reddy says, coffee physics. The probability of sneezing is inversely proportionate to the distance from the rim of the liquid. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Man, I hope your coffee's as good as mine. I tell you what, I need it this morning. I got a little cold going on. Yeah, and I want to do a little PSA also while we're getting started. I've got a daughter that's in the medical field. I'm not going to get into her personal shit. If she wanted me to put her personal shit out there, she would tell me to put her personal shit out there. But anyways, I will tell you, she is qualified to give you this advice. There is a pneumonia going around. That's really bad. It is really bad. Folks, get your vaccinations, please. Go out and get vaccinated, please. I did. Mrs. Texas Paul did. I don't get it. We're going into summer. Everything should be abating. It's not. It's not. It's going around right now. Asborn News says you can easily 3D print a plastic gun, assembling sections when needed. Carrying 4 rounds into a plane is a serious threat to aviation security. Amen. I hear you. I hear you, brother. The laws were put in place for a reason. And thank you. Thank you for saying it. Those laws were put in place for a reason. That I may have sounded dismissive, and that was not my intent. That was not my intent. No, that's not RSV. RSV is different, and I recommend get your full raft of vaccinations. Just get it done, man. Me and Mrs. Texas Paul, like I said, we like to travel. We're making sure we're up on our vaccinations, and just highly recommend it for you too. Highly recommend it for you too. Talk to your doctors and get what they recommend. So, along the lines of the ugly American, we got to talk about Gaza a little bit. We do. I don't like to talk about it because there's been a lot of stupidity and a lot of misinformation around this whole thing. You know me, folks. I mean, for 40 years, I have been an advocate for Palestinians, but I'm not on board with all of everything that's going on and everything that's going on and being said. You got people getting their information from a teenage kid on TikTok that's got a mail order kefir just because he'll trash Israel. And I'm going to lay this out there. I am. I'm not going to let there be an elephant in the room. I am going to lay it out there. I support Israel. I do. They have been our staunch ally in the region. When other countries were screaming death to America, Israel was our ally. That being said, I have never liked Benjamin Netanyahu. Never. Never. That man is like a smarter, more evil Donald Trump. He really is. He's not good for Israel. He's not good for anyone. He's not. But I absolutely support Israel, and I will have Israel's back. I don't care if I lose every viewer I ever have. I am not going to turn my back on Israel. They have been there for us when nobody else in that region was. And just because we're getting along now with Egypt, just because we're getting along with Qatar, just because we're getting along, we've even mended fences with Saudi Arabia. Had a big rift with Saudi Arabia over Iran. We made overtures to Iran that the Republicans have been screaming about. We returned Iran's money to them that we had seized. The Republicans have been screaming about that left and right. Just making up bullshit as they go, as usual. But that's where I am on Israel. Okay. Any questions you have, we'll do it as a roundtable. Jordan says, forgive me, I got a little bit of a hay fever. It's summertime. It always gets me every year. It is impossible to have a 2-state solution with Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas, and Hamas is in charge. Jordan, I always say this. You folks are always ahead of me. This is where I'm going. But I want to lay this out first. That's my view on Israel. I got your back. I do. You had ours, I've got yours. Not abandoning Israel. The Palestinians. Look, folks, if you think misinformation is bad here, you know, you've got people that are MAGA. And they're MAGA because they're inside an information bubble. You know, I blame us Democrats all the time. I said, look, we didn't get out there, we didn't swing, we didn't get after it. When the Republicans went on the personal attacks, we tried to stay high road, and a lot of this is on us. And it's created a right-wing bubble that has massive amounts of misinformation on it. You've got people in MAGA that sincerely believe that Joe Biden, a deeply religious man who loves his family, who's a good and decent human being, they believe that he is some sort of pervert. There were pictures shown of him consoling his granddaughter at his son's funeral. And the right-wing misinformation machine sent that picture out saying that he was sniffing some kid, some random kid. It was his granddaughter. He was consoling her at her father's funeral. Somebody that's in that bubble isn't going to be right in the head. They're just not. Jeanette Dahl, American NATO members have received a pamphlet about what the Dems are like and other things about Denmark. It was supposed to be that so that nothing bad would happen while they are here. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to. Oh, by the way, I want to congratulate we got several folks here from Denmark. You just got listed as the least corrupt country on the planet. There's something called the Corruption Index. And you folks were number one. You were the least corrupt country on the planet. Congratulations, folks. I'm telling you, culture matters. It matters. But back to what I was talking about. Palestine. Just like you have MAGA misinformation here, and you have people that are just steeped in misinformation, it doesn't mean they're evil people. It doesn't. It does mean they want to hear this stuff. They're hearing what they want to hear, and they're seeking it out. And yes, I will tell you, you are better than they are because you don't have that flaw in your character. I am telling you, I had people just call me to the carpet. When I made that factual error and I said 4 pounds of ammunition, I had people just call me out. I got, at least a dozen emails saying, wait a minute, it was 4 rounds of ammunition, not 4 pounds. So I went back and I read it. You know, that's what you are. You are people that don't want to be misinformed. You want to have information, good information. MAGA, same thing. The Palestinian people, I'm drawing a parallel to the Palestinians. Do you think anywhere in Gaza there's a healthy information stream? Anywhere in Gaza. Or the West Bank for that matter. There isn't, folks. That's just the reality on the ground. And it doesn't mean that Palestinian people are inherently evil people. They are not. They are not. Exactly. Gaza is run by Hamas. They are literally the government there. They control all of the information on the ground. And that's a difficult situation. It is. It's a difficult situation because we have things happening in Gaza right now. For instance, we just completed our floating pier to get aid into Gaza. We're going to talk a little bit about this. U.S. military completes construction of temporary pier in Gaza. That's from Stars and Strike, folks. We just got it done. What that means, though, is American personnel is going to be right there. The way the plan is now is that they're going to be on ships. The personnel that run that pier are going to be on ships. But we've got to provide security. And what is Hamas going to do? Is Hamas going to attack those people? Amen. Amen, Catherine. Amen. CBs get it done. So yeah, we've got that. That's the situation. I stand with Israel. I stand with the people of Palestine. I do. I hate that this fighting is going on, but I told you the minute it started what was going to happen. I have not been wrong about one single prediction I have made in that region. You can go down the list. When the fighting started, when October 7th happened, all the little kiddies on TikTok were proclaiming that what was going to happen was all of Israel's neighbors who hate Israel as much as those anti-Semites do. And yeah, a lot of that misinformation is being run through white supremacy organizations. They are. We saw in the universities. 80% of the people arrested at the University of Arizona State were not even students. You have organizations from white supremacists to Israel anti-Semites that are pushing this misinformation. That's why I have not jumped on the bandwagon with any of this. But I can still say I don't like any of it. I don't. Hey, from Cohoes, New York, finally remembered to catch you live. Hey, I'm glad you're here, Bob. I'm glad you're here, man. Thank you for the support. I'm glad you're here, brother. And y'all hit the thumbs up button so we can get as many people into this live audience as possible. But look, I'm not happy about this war. And me just saying that it's happening, me just saying that it's going to happen, that's not me supporting it, me being happy. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. Like I was saying, in the beginning, what was the first thing we heard? All of Israel's neighbors are going to turn against it and they're going to destroy Israel. Literally what we heard October 8th. Starting October 8th for that full month, all of November. I said, no, they're not. No, they're not. It's not going to happen. Didn't happen. Because the big players in that region, except for Iran, don't want war. Syria is completely crippled. Assad is literally fighting for his life in Syria. You have extremist groups, and people celebrate this too in Syria when you see these groups rising up to oppose Assad. These are not freedom-loving people. These are people, they're extremists. They are. It's a very complex situation. It is. It's a very, very complex situation. And I said, Israel's going to roll through Gaza. Everybody said, you're crazy, this, that, and the other. The international community is going to shut Israel down. And I said, no, they're not. No, they're not. The international community is not going to do anything for the Palestinians. They never have. The Palestinians have been crapped on in every country surrounding, in Egypt, in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia. What makes you think when they're crapping on Palestinians in their own countries that they're gonna just go to the mat to destroy? But no, you had people all over TikTok saying this was going to happen, and because I said that, because it's reality, I got attacked. Oh, you just hate the Palestinians? No, I don't. No, I don't. MJ, we are. I've had several people mention it, and even Mrs. Texas Paul has sent a note in the background that we need to. That is actually part of the show later on. We're going to talk about Eileen Cannon. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong one, MJ. That wasn't you. But yeah, we are going to talk about Eileen Cannon later on. But I definitely want This is going on, folks, and this is going somewhere. Don't take the fact that I tell you something's going to happen because I know it's going to happen and I know what the reality is on the ground, that I've been following this. I didn't come to this on October 7th. I have been following the situation forever. The dynamics between Iran and Saudi Arabia had been playing out. It just wasn't played out in our media, but it doesn't mean it wasn't happening. There was a lot of us that were paying attention to the region, that were listening to these statements that were just dumb. And we've hit a crisis point there now. We have. And I'm afraid it's about to go over the cliff. And that's what I want to talk about here and now. I just wanted to buy some credibility with what I said, so you know that I actually do support the Palestinian people. I have said repeatedly that there's no such thing as a two-state solution, because Israel is not going to give Israel to Palestine. That, when you say you want a two-state solution, that's what you're talking about. Israel giving the Palestinians Israeli land, that's what you're talking about. Because the Palestinians don't just want the West Bank. They don't just want Gaza. They want Israel proper, and that's not going to happen. This needs to be a multi-state solution, not a two-state solution. Because that land's got to come from Jordan. It's got to come from the West Bank. It's got to come from, it will not ever be exactly DG. It will never be the river to the sea, which is what the Palestinians are telling you to your face that they want. The river to the sea means from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea. That is all of Israel. It's not going to happen. Period. There is no two-state solution. But we are at a crisis point, and the corporate media is failing us right now. Joe Biden is doing a phenomenal job. He is slapping a bridle on Benjamin Netanyahu. He is. They have, for the first time ever, stopped an arms shipment to Israel. Let me say that again. For the first time ever, they have stopped an arms shipment to Israel. That is a shot across the bow to Netanyahu and Ben Gvir and all of his radical right-wingers that there is a limit. And this, folks, is the limit. Rafah. Gaza is considered technically Israeli territory, even though they have given control over to the Palestinians, and it is literally run by Hamas. For some reason, the world has this confusing idea that Israel still runs Gaza. And there's this weird legal, and I'll ask you, some of the smartest people there, who owns Gaza? Not who runs it, who owns Gaza? There's a confusion there. So when Israel went into Gaza, there isn't going to be this red line, because half the world thinks that Israel owns Gaza, and it's just cleaning up their own backyard, basically. Rafah is not. This is Rafah, folks. I mean, go to the map. This is Rafah. Let me back out for a second. Back out so that you can get a good image of this. This is Rafah. You see Israel. This is all of Israel. Gaza is this little piece down here in the corner. And you can see it with the dotted line here because, there's, like Kosovo, there seems to be some confusion internationally about whose land that is. But there is no confusion over Rafah. Rafah is Egypt. Khan Yunis, that was one thing. Gaza City, that was one thing. Rafah is Egypt. Egypt is an ally of the United States, and you will not attack Rafah, period. That is the message coming out of the Biden administration. You will not attack Rafah. And Netanyahu, who's got allies within the Republican Party, who thinks he's got cover, is saying, watch me. Watch me. So the first time ever, the United States said, you know what? Don't ship those arms. Don't ship those arms. And this is a crisis situation. This is a crisis situation. And it's wholly on Netanyahu. 100% on Netanyahu. We need to be completely clear about this. Hamas needs to be destroyed. There's no future with Hamas. Hamas's trick that they just played with, we agreed to the ceasefire, and what Hamas did was they walked into the negotiations. They said, here's our ceasefire agreement. We agree to that. And the corporate media, being the corporate media, ran out and said, oh, Hamas agrees to ceasefire. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. There was a framework on the table that had been negotiated by Egypt and Qatar, and Hamas came in last minute. They threw a bunch of changes out there and said, okay, we agree. We agree. And Israel said, no, we're not doing that. And the corporate media, of course, ran with Israel blows up ceasefire. That is not what happened. That is not what happened. Is there cause for optimism? Sure. That's the first time ever Hamas is walking is, okay, we agree to ceasefire. Israel has been plain clear about it. There is no ceasefire until the hostages, all the hostages, dead or alive, come home. But there's a problem with that, and that Hamas is actually divided right now. You have Yahya Sinwar saying one thing, and then you have the leaders of Hamas in exile saying another, who are negotiating with Egypt, saying another. And then you've got Sinwar that is stuck, who's hiding in Rafah right now, stuck, saying something else. It's a complex situation. It really is. It is. It's a very complex situation. But what is not complex is Rafah is Egypt. Rafah is Egypt. Let me say that one more time. Rafah is Egypt. It is not Israeli territory. And I understand Israel has a history of killing Iranians in Syria. Can you mind hit that fan for me? Thank you. History. Israel has a history of hitting targets outside its borders in retaliation. This isn't that clear. The training for October 7th happened in Gaza. The forces that attacked them on October 7th were in Gaza. The men came from Gaza. Yes, they have fled to Rafah, but you cannot cross that line. You cannot. Period. But again, we have Republicans here interfering with foreign policy because it's an election year. And it's that simple. Rafah is not in Gaza. There is a section, a couple neighborhoods that run. I'll show you on the map again exactly where Rafah is. The reason that Israel is controlling the gates to Rafah, and there are gates, period. This is Israel. This is Rafah. Now you see this neighborhood? They call this Rafah, but that is not what they're talking about when they're talking about going into Rafah. This is Khan Yunis here. That is not what they're talking about when they're talking about going into Rafah. They're talking about going into Rafah proper because Hamas is hiding here in Rafah in Egypt. Israel has already seized the gates. They are talking about going into, and that's something else that's a problem. It is something else that is a problem. Let me back that up again so you can see it, what I'm talking about. This neighborhood, they're referring to Rafah in Israel. This is neighborhoods that run over. That is not what we're talking about. These are all, you have Gaza City, you have Khan Yunis, and then you have Rafah. Rafah is actually in Egypt. Israel has already seized the gates that cross over. Now, this neighborhood, they refer to it as Rafah, but that is not what they're talking about. When they're talking about invading Rafah, they're not going to stop at the wall here. They're not. They've already seized the crossings. They're talking about Egypt proper, and that cannot happen. It cannot happen, period. Yes, it's a city in the North Sinai. In any situation, this complex is rife for, just completely ripe for misinformation. And thank you, Linda, for saying that. Thank you. Right on the money. The Kurds need a Kurdistan as well. This is completely being ignored. Everybody's looking at the Palestinians in this region. The Kurds need a Kurdistan. They have been just fighting for their lives in Syria and Turkey. Turkey has brutally butchered Kurds, and they have been a strong ally of ours. When I say this needs to be a multi-state solution, it needs to be a multi-state solution. But folks, I just wanted to be clear on that because you're going to get a lot of misinformation. The Biden administration has slammed the brakes on their latest arms shipment to Israel for the first time ever. And believe me, they are not talking about the neighborhoods on the Israeli side of the border. They are not. They are talking about Israel proper. Or pardon me, Egypt proper. Egypt is our ally. And to cross that line, it's not like Syria. Syria is a war zone. Syria has sections carved out by Hezbollah. It has sections controlled by the Russians and Assad and the Syrian government. And hell, we even have bases in Syria. Eastern Syria is a no man's land. Nobody owns it. And then you have other groups that are vying to carve out their own territory. Syria is literally falling apart, disintegrating before our eyes. But yeah, I wanted to be clear on that, folks. One, the whole ceasefire thing was not what it was represented. It wasn't. Again, it's complex. And I'm grateful every day that we have people in our government that actually do the work, that are working right now. They are working right now as we speak. As I am talking to you on this microphone, there are Americans, Anthony Blinken, and the State Department that are working with Israel to make sure that this does not blow up and get out of control. Thank you, Rich. Exactly. Ukraine needs its freedom too. And again, with so much going on, I just thank God that we have a Democrat in the White House. Could you imagine the buffoonery that would be happening? How much we would be bending over to Putin's will in all of these regions if Trump were president? And I just want to say this. The Palestinians have been shit on by every single group. The Hashemites that run Jordan, the Saudis, the House of Saud, the Egyptians, the Israelis, the Syrians. Assad butchered tens of thousands. There's as many estimates when you take all of the Arabs that Assad killed. They estimate somewhere in the neighborhood, and the Russians, they estimate somewhere in the area of 300,000. They just buried them in mass graves in Syria. It's a complex situation, and it is not time for buffoonery. It's just not. It's just not. And speaking of buffoonery, we had a big news story here a little while back. I talked about it a little bit. The Russians have been shown to be nothing that they portrayed themselves as. And there's been follow-up reviews of cyber attacks here in the U.S. You remember there were news stories like this. They were all over the place. I mean, we were just inundated with them on social media. They were all over the place in the corporate media. Russia-linked hackers claim cyber attacks on U.S., French, and Polish water utilities. And everybody was afraid. They put out a video. Well, it turns out that video was crap. It was crap. There's a group that call themselves Sandworm. You know, it sounds scary. Sandworm. Talking about how they're able to just attack our infrastructure. They're going to shut down our water infrastructure, and you're not going to be able to get water, and you're not going to be able to. Turns out it's all crap. So they just had a cybersecurity audit. They hired a company by the name of Mandiant. Mandiant specializes in cybersecurity, and they took a look at what Sandworm was actually able to do. And you see the headline here: a misguided cyber operation, the French mill incident. What they're talking about is this. Sandworm claimed that they debilitated our water infrastructure, and they were able to take control of a dam in France, and they posted a video. The picture on the left is posted is actually a screenshot from the video where they said they had control over this dam, and all they had to do was shut it down, and the dam would burst, and there would be mass flooding, and we needed to all be scared. Turns out, no, they really didn't. They never did have control of this dam. The video that they posted, the software that they posted, Mandiant went back and took a look at it. What they took control of is this little mill here on the right in France. What they actually took control of was that little mill in a little small town in France that's on a creek in France. And they showed themselves in the video, you know, look, we can just manipulate water flow and you know, your lives are in our hands. No, it's that tiny little mill in a village of 300 people in France. One second, let me pull it up for you. Courlandin, France. Let's go to the map. And this is what's important, folks, in this story. This is Ruta Corlanden. You can't even see that creek from the satellite because this satellite image was taken in the summer and it's dry. This is Ruta de la Corlanden. It's a tiny little village. It's a tiny little village. And they didn't hack the dam on the river. They hacked a tiny little mill and claimed it was. And our corporate media just immediately just ran with it. Oh man, the Russians, we're in danger, man. Those Russians could hobble all our infrastructure, our power infrastructure. You can't get water. They hacked did you hear? They hacked water systems here in Texas. It turns out not so much. They did. Don't get me wrong. This is Abernathy, Texas. This is Abernathy, Texas. This is the little town. There were two little towns, Muleshoe and Abernathy. This is Abernathy. What they were able to do in Abernathy, and I'll back out so you can get a good view of where Abernathy is and just how small it is. This is Abernathy. Ta-da. Little town of Lubbock, North Texas. Here's the Panhandle. Here's Dallas over here. Here's the area I'm in. This is Abernathy. What they were able to do is they were able to hack into the small little water district there in Abernathy, this tiny little rural town. And they were able to disable the float inside their tank, which caused their water tower to keep filling and overflow. They never interrupted water service at all. That was it. They were able to get into a tiny little town with just the smallest little water district there that didn't have the resources to have backup systems that all of our major water districts do. And they were able to make their water tower overflow, not interrupt water service. And this is Muleshoe. I want you to see what we're talking about compared to what the stories were that you saw online. This is Muleshoe. Again, same region, just a little bit farther west. See, this is the Panhandle. There's Lubbock down here. You're talking about the middle of nowhere, folks. The middle of nowhere. The tiniest little water districts. They were able to take control and cause their water towers to overflow. But you look at the headlines from corporate media, think back for a second to what you heard about all this. Rockwall. It's not Rockwell, it's Rockwall. And it's not that far from here. Not that far from here. Folks, Russia is not what it was portrayed to us. It just isn't. They've done a great job of portraying themselves as super scary. They've done a great job of representing themselves. And that's what this whole article is about. This is a great article in Wired magazine. They did an interview with Sandworm. And this is their AI-generated spokeswoman, Julia. They're not able to do anything of consequence. We're safe. We're safe. That's the whole point of this article. This was much ado about nothing. Let me tell you how easily these hacks are thwarted. Say somebody screws up. Somebody opens something on their phone open something on their phone they're not supposed to, and sandworm's able to put a virus on your phone, and you plug your phone into your laptop that controls your little water district. Let's say it's a big water district. No, folks, that computer goes down. Those computers are supposed to be air broken. We have been talking about how to deal with these situations for a while. Democrats have been in charge. We didn't sit on our hands with our thumbs up our butt. We have been going to each of these water districts and saying, look, your control systems need to be air broken. What that means is that they're not on the internet. That there's literally a physical break between those computers and any network. But let's just say somebody screws up. Okay. So that system gets hacked. Are we in dire straits? No. These don't require IBM mainframes to run, folks. These systems are run off laptops and PCs you can buy at Best Buy. Literally the fix for this, if someone just screws up by the numbers every step of the way, the fix for this is they unplug that computer, set it aside. You drive down to Best Buy or wherever you want to buy your PC from. They buy a PC, they go back, they set it up, they download the control software because they paid for it. They can get it. They download the control software from the company that runs their software controls. They reinitiate controls over their system. You're talking a max half a day. And that's in a catastrophic failure. Your larger water systems and power systems already have the backups in place, already have the software downloaded in redundant systems. This just is not what it was portrayed to be. And that is what frustrates me so badly about what the news has become. Folks, if I wanted to be popular, I would be sitting here scaring the living shit out of you. Oh, the boogeyman is coming. The Russians are coming. You got to be scared. We got to be scared, folks, because fear sells. And that's exactly what they are selling. Look at the Republicans and look at what the corporate media is willing to do with the Republicans right now. And the same thing is happening right now with this whole Judge Cannon thing. If you've been paying attention, Judge Cannon put out an order. I have the actual order for you. I always like to download these and read them. Here's the actual order that gives a timeline on hearings going forward and when they will happen. And everybody in the corporate media is in full freakout mode because these hearings, if you look at the date here, run into July. You can download this order. It's available online. You can get it for yourself if you want to see the actual order that she issued and read it for yourself so you don't have to digest what somebody else tells you is in it. But the bottom line is, yeah, Eileen Cannon has been getting has advisors that work for the Republican Party. We just had a story break that a billionaire, remember the Republican right-wing billionaire frat boy club has been sending her on trips, and she just forgot to tell anybody about those. Another Clarence Thomas situation. And she's got advisors from these right-wing groups, Heritage and whatnot, that are telling her how to drag this out. Because Trump's only hope in this is that it goes beyond the election. But I keep telling you, folks, don't fret about this. I keep telling you, do not fret about this. Mr. Newton, Russia is still a threat to small neighbors. Putin put zero value on human lives. Norway, with 5.5 million people, could never alone muster an army big enough to defend against an all-out attack. Don von Schitzenband must not rule. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. That's why we here in the United States have been working so hard. The Democrats here in the United States have been working so hard to strengthen NATO, because Norway is not alone. Where we go one, we go all. That's originally from NATO. You're not alone, my friend. You are not alone. And I don't mean to discount Russia as a threat, period. What I'm talking about is what the media portrays. And this is where I was going with this. Can I get a beer? Says, hope Jack Smith can give us satisfaction. This hearing schedule is all Jack Smith needs. He can go to the 11th Circuit and say, look, she's not doing her job. None of these hearings need to be drug out this long, and it is intentionally putting us into the election season. Yeah, I agree with you. Eileen Cannon was never qualified for her job. Trump put her in that seat, and we just had another great comment here asking if Jack Smith will appeal this. Yeah, they've already said they're going to. That's what I tell you, folks. Don't stress about this. Jack Smith, this is all Jack Smith needs to take this to the 11th Circuit and say, look, this is obviously intentional to put this into the election season. And let's say worst case scenario, the 11th Circuit tells Jack Smith, you know what, her court, she can run it how she wants. All she's doing is opening up calendar space for Fani Willis. That's it. You know, Eileen Cannon can sit here and pretend all day long that Donald Trump doesn't have the means to prepare for more than one trial at a time, because that is her argument that she is making. That, oh, well, there's this trial in Manhattan that's going on, and then a Supreme Court hearing, and you can't expect poor Donald Trump to have enough lawyers. He's only got these lawyers. That's not true at all. Forgive me. Yeah, absolutely, Bob. Great article in the New Yorker about her. Can't maintain a staff. Turnover was very high. She's in way over her head. Yeah, she is. And she's getting terrible advice. She's getting terrible advice because the folks that are advising her don't give a damn about her and what happens to her. All they care about is Trump. She is going to be more grist for the mill when all of this is over. But let's just pretend for a second that she gets her way. All she's done, folks, is open up the calendar for Fani Willis. That's it. And that is a criminal trial. Donald Trump is going to spend from now for the rest of his natural life on trial. He's never going to be able to go out there and campaign or do anything. You know, I am always reticent. I don't really want to celebrate too early. I don't like to count the, you know, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, and she's just warming up right now. But I'm telling you, folks, there's no move that Eileen Cannon makes that saves Donald Trump. Either she has her trial, which she has control over, or she opens up the calendar for Fani Willis and Scott McAfee down in Georgia. Because, yeah, but Republican Georgia Senate is after Fani Willis, not good. I agree. And Fani Willis knew this, folks. When she got into this, she knew this was going to be a fight. She knew it was. But let's do one more hypothetical. One more hypothetical. Let's say Scott McAfee and the Republicans down in Georgia do kill this. Let's say that they basically do what they did with Ken Paxton here in Texas, and they let him skate. As Ron Knudsen says, Eileen Cannon needs to be removed. She should never have been made a judge. She is a disgrace, will be thrown under the bus. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. But let's just play a hypothetical. Let's say that they shut down the Georgia. They shut it down in Georgia. Let's say that Eileen Cannon gets her way down in Florida. Let's say that the DC case doesn't get put back on track. Let's say all of that happens. He still loses the election. And none of this goes away. Because what is that going to do to you? What are you going to do? If you see this much government interference, you see corruption at this level, you see Eileen Cannon taking trips funded by Republican donors and then turning around and intentionally screwing Donald Trump's schedule for Donald Trump to try to get him off. What does that do to you? Does it make you want to stay home, or does it piss you off? There's no win for Donald Trump here. There just isn't. Because if this happens, I just want to remind you folks that there is an overriding political principle in this country that is true, always true. Ignore this at your peril. Ignore this at your peril. People do not vote to say thank you. We Democrats do the work and have never had a single person show up at the polls to say, hey, man, thanks for doing all that hard work. Thanks for putting competent people in the State Department so that they could deal with all of these complex situations. People show up to vote to say, fuck you. They always have. And they always will. And if Eileen Cannon rapes the legal system to protect Donald Trump, what are you going to say about it? What are you going to do? Are you going to be motivated? I think so. That is the end of Donald Trump and his election, period. If they do that. So he's got two paths going forward. Either he is clogged up in the court system, unable, just getting humiliated day after day after day after day, like you're seeing in the Manhattan trial. There's that route, or you have a Republican system that airs itself as so corrupt that people have no choice but to go to the polling booths and vote them out of office. There is no lose here. But folks, every once in a while something happens that's just funny. It's just funny. We've all been watching this whole RFK thing blow up on the Republicans. And where that comes from, why they funded this, okay? You've got a bunch of people that claim to be geniuses within the Republican Party that convinced these Republican donors that they know what the hell is going on. And they said, you know what? We just need to get somebody named Kennedy to run. And then that'll assure us we'll win. We'll win. We will. And they used as proof, they went back to the 1980 election. The primary between Jimmy Carter and Teddy Kennedy was brutal. It was brutal. It was similar to what happened in 2016 with the Bernie Bros and Hillary Clinton. And that is what ended up costing Jimmy Carter the election, was Ted Kennedy. Well, they thought that they were going to do that again. They said, we'll just get a Kennedy that'll run. Problem is, there wasn't a Kennedy out there that was enough of a whore to actually betray the Democratic Party and pull a Teddy Kennedy 2.0. Teddy Kennedy spent his entire life making amends for that until he died. He did. So they found RFK Jr., who is a nut, just a complete nut, anti-vaxxer, broken, ridiculous. Victor H. Pink Floyd and the worms ate into his brain. You know where we're going with that? I love you folks. I love that you folks are always ahead of it. I love that you folks are always ahead of it. So they said, okay, we're going to prop RFK up. That's the why of it. They think that they're going to repeat the 1980 election. They've got a Kennedy and, we Democrats. Well, nobody loved him because everything he said was far right-winger, nutball, conspiracy Q nutness. And turns out he's just taken voters from Trump. Trump has started to attack RFK. Well, it just got beautiful, folks. So you can't run for president. They will, without them digging into every aspect of your life. What happened in 2016 was an aberration. Trump got such a massive pass from the media. He ripped off a charity. Media didn't really touch it. They told us it happened, but they didn't really touch it. All they did was attack Hillary Clinton. He ripped off a charity. Rachel Maddow, man, go back, to your streaming service, YouTube, or whatever you've got for a streaming service, and look at Rachel Maddow's show yesterday, talking about Trump and the things he's done. There's no magic to it, folks. It's the way the media portrays it. It's the way the media portrays it. They don't portray anything as though it's real or serious. It's always whataboutism. Thank you for the support, Vicky. I appreciate you. It's always whataboutism. Yeah, Trump stole from a child's charity. But let me tell you about Hillary Clinton's emails, because that's critical, man. That's critical. She acid washed her server, which is really just she didn't take like acid and pour it all over it. It's just a software program is all it is. But it doesn't sound really nefarious if you say, well, she just used the same cybersecurity software program that everybody uses to control a server that you want to keep secure. Every company worth its salt, whenever they get done with devices, they collect all of the devices. When your company gives you a cell phone, your executives, when they get a new device, there's somebody there to collect the old device and they smash it up. They don't get to give it to a kid, or they don't get to, no, that's just normal. But what did the corporate media do? Oh, she acid washed her server. Just nonsense. Meanwhile, Trump stole from a charity. ET, people are being actively removed from the voter registration list. Verify when your state. Yeah, we're going to talk about the ET. Thank you for bringing that up. We're going to talk about this over and over and over again ad nauseum. You need to keep an eye on your voter registration because Republicans know they're screwed. They know they're screwed. But look, folks, we're going a little bit long. I want you to see this. This is freaking hilarious. So RFK, not only did he end up being a draw against just this whole thing is just blown up like a nuclear Russian Tsar bomb in their faces. Not only did he take votes from Trump? Now they have to submarine RFK, and he has had to come out and disclose all of the health problems that he has had, and they're freaking hilarious. Hilarious. This is the headline from The Independent. RFK Jr. says a worm ate part of his brain and then died inside his head. Not kidding. It wasn't his only disclosure. There's actually one that's actually worse than that. Believe it or not, if you know anything medically about mercury poisoning and what it will do to your ability to reason, anti-vaccine activist RFK Jr. said he also suffered mercury poisoning from eating too much fish. I love tuna fish sandwiches. I ate them all the time. You know how much tuna fish you got to eat to get mercury poisoning? I mean, my God. But the media is finally, this is something that is just clickbait enough that they're actually talking about this. This is from CNN yesterday. It's just freaking hilarious.
I just ask you guys one more thing. The New York Times, and this has nothing to do with, well, it has to do with the presidential election, has just come out with this extraordinary, bizarre article on RFK. And they're reporting that doctors, in a deposition, that RFK said doctors found a worm in his brain that had eaten part of his brain and then died there. I mean, you laugh, but I mean, what might this mean? I mean, what might this mean to an election, to hearing that he said this in a deposition? It
probably means, and one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is try not to go into depositions high. That's usually what I would suggest. And I would, that would be my words of wisdom. I have political issues with RFK, but this is just a little bit beyond my pale of expertise.
I mean, if that's true, if a worm ate his brain, which is mind-blowing on so many levels. I mean, everybody's talking about the cognitive, capabilities of Biden, the cognitive capabilities of Donald Trump. How did the worm get there?
I just have a lot of questions.
Right. I mean, that's one of those times.
Yeah. And in that interview kind of gets glossed over the fact that, but the reason he said that they actually found the brain worm was that he was having cognitive difficulty, which I'm sure just got much better over time. So yeah, folks, everybody, and that's the purpose. That's the overarching message I have for this show. Is Eileen Cannon, she can take a poop in the sandbox. She can, but there's no win there. The Russians can go into some little podunk little town's water system, and they can cause the water tower to overflow. But they can't really do any damage. And right now, what we're getting from the press is just overarching doom selling all the time. I'm just waiting to find out from the press, the New York Times article that's going to explain to us why RFK having a brain worm is bad for Biden. Meanwhile, and I just want to, this is serious, folks. I just want to end this with this. We're going to wrap the show up with this. We've just had a lot of flooding down here in Texas. A lot of flooding down here in Texas. One second. I want you to see this, and I just one second. Give me 1 second. I apologize. I got to pull a Hal here. There we go. I got it back. All right. All right. Got it back. Thank you. This is Lucas Warren. If you don't know, we've had a ton of flooding. This is little Lucas Warren. And this is Lucas Warren's family. His father, Aaron Warren, and his mother. We're driving about 2 o'clock in the morning during the rainstorm. And I don't know if you know how hard it is to see. You know, I normally scream at people that drive into high water crossings, but in the middle of the night, they can sneak up on you. They can. And they accidentally drove into a high water flooding situation. The water was rising so quickly. They got out of the car. The car was swept away. They got out of the car, and little Lucas was swept away from them, and he's gone. He is gone. And there's a link to their GoFundMe in the description. I've never really done that before, but in this case, I'm going to. They don't really have the means for his funeral. But folks, this flooding is in my area. Most of it was concentrated down south, but the Trinity River that feeds this, if I drive 1 minute that way, 5 minutes that way, and another minute that way, I'm on the Trinity River. It literally flows right by my house. There's a boat ramp where people launch their boat and go fishing. This isn't new. This happens every couple of years. We know we have a problem. We've known we've had a problem for decades. Every time we get sustained rainfall up here, it floods down south. It just does. Conroe has just been decimated. Lake Livingston, Lake Conroe, they're having to open the floodgates. Everything south of there is being flooded. This is Judge Lena Hidalgo from Harris County. I said Harrison, I'm sorry. Harris County. That's Houston. She's a badass. She really is. There's a reason there wasn't all over the news that there was just mass tragedy. Houston, Harris County, your county judge runs your county. There are different districts that are represented, but the judge is the top hog at the trough. Lena Hidalgo does an amazing job working with first responders because she knows there is a problem, a flooding problem. They are the very bottom of these river systems. And she and the first responders in Houston do an amazing job preparing for what a tragedy they know is going to happen over and over and over again, but they do not have the resources to fix the problem. A county can't do that. They don't have the resources. They cannot control the flow of a river. That requires the federal and state government working in partnership. And it's a slap in the face. Yeah, I know. Fort Worth got quite a bit of flooding too. But my governor, useless Greg Abbott, who supposedly toured, I guess he was out wheeling around in the flood, supposedly toured the flood damage, is out praising first responders and what. That's not your job. You know, the city of Conroe was just decimated. The flooding in Conroe was terrible. Conroe is red. It is a Republican area. What have they been focusing on? Is it flood control? Nah. They fired their city manager. It's all kinds of power grab crap that's been going on in the city of Conroe. Just like my governor has been focused on this fake border crap instead of doing their job. Folks, here in the state of Texas, our taxes are as high as they are anywhere. By the time you figure in, just because we don't have the state income tax doesn't mean we're not getting killed with taxes. Thanks for the support, Katie. I appreciate you. We're getting killed with taxes. Our roads are terrible. Our schools are crap. Every summer, these rivers dry up. Every spring, they flood. And for a quarter century, the Republicans have done nothing but play this stupid political shiny object game. Oh, let's worry about the lives of gay people. Oh, let's worry about the lives of women that have medical situations that they need to take care of. Let's get in that business. When really your fucking job is controlling the floodplain. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Roads, bridges, power infrastructure, internet infrastructure, and controlling flooding. Lake Conroe, Lake Livingston are wide open right now. And the city of Houston is dealing with it. They're downstream. They're dealing with it because it's run by Democrats. And Democrats don't just do the shiny object game. Lena Hidalgo has been down there looking at the situation and knowing, and God bless the police and the fire departments and the EMS and everybody that went to work, but they all had plans in place to deal with a problem that is not being dealt with because we have this asshole of a governor who wants to play stupid games at the border for Trump instead of doing his damn job. Glad you're here, Katie. Glad you're here. Folks, we have to stop this politics as entertainment because Republicans are just all in for it, man. The entire Republican existence, from voter to politician, involves one thing. They want to take and find a situation where they can look down on someone, attack someone, and pretend that was their job. And the voters do it because they sit there and say, well, I'm better than them Democrats. Meanwhile, we Democrats, we've got the State Department dispatched to the Middle East. We've got the State Department working with Ukraine. We've got our military working with Ukraine. We're really doing the damn jobs. We're looking at the infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. It's not sexy. It's not. It doesn't make the news. You know how long, a new lake is coming. We've created a new reservoir on the Trinity River to help control flooding. That's what, a 2-day story max with a couple follow-ups for economic growth. So Republicans don't do it. They don't do it. They want to attack somebody's gay kid. They want to sue a hospital in Seattle. My attorney general literally had a press conference bragging about the fact that he sued a hospital in Seattle because someone with a transgender child took their child to Washington to get them health care. Meanwhile, we have little Lucas Warren that died here. could have been saved by a light to let his parents know that they were going into a flooding situation. Gregory Brown's from the top to the bottom, they departed reality for the sake of their narrative. Yeah, exactly where I'm going with this, folks. We can't afford it anymore. Little Lucas died because my governor did not work with a Democratic administration to come up with a plan to have the Army Corps of Engineers do more flood control in this region. We need the water. Every summer, every time there's any kind of drought conditions, these rivers go dry, the lakes go down, we end up in water conservation because we don't have enough water held in reserve. Those reservoirs also help in flood control. That's the kind of thing that we need to be doing, folks. And that's what you're going to get done. That is what you're going to get done. Neo, perfectly. Don't get mad, vote. Don't boo, vote. If you vote Republican, if you let the Republicans beat us in November, you're going to get more attacks on people, more book banning. You're going to get more attacks on our elections because they don't want to have to face responsibility for their lack of governance. That's what you're going to get. Or you can support candidates, you can vote, you can phone bank, you can talk to your friends, you can push back every time one of these people gives you stupid nonsense about Gaza, or they give you stupid nonsense about Trump, or any of these shiny object things. Push back and say, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're going to have a future where we do things like build reservoirs. We're going to have a future where we do things like we make sure our cities and towns have decent roads, decent infrastructure, internet infrastructure. We have figured this out. We Democrats can get this done. We can get this done. There are a lot of really good qualified people that would be better for the job than me. If the situation ever came up that that all hell broke loose and we couldn't get a decent candidate, I'd think about it. But there are good qualified people that we can support. And that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing right here, which is sitting here talking with you so that you can go out there and you can help make these things happen. Well, I love you folks. That's what I have for you today. And that's the overarching message that I have for you today. Don't get discouraged. There's nothing they can do that's going to help Trump. Nothing. Even if they delayed these trials, worst case scenario, if they delayed these trials and did everything, it's going to cost him the election. Period. If he has to go through the trials, it's just humiliating and destroying him every single day. There is no path forward for them. There isn't. As long as you do one thing, show up and vote. Well, folks, I love you. My cold is getting worse. My nose is going crazy. I'm sitting there touching this. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the round table at the end of the show today. I apologize. I promise I will make it up to you in the future. Enjoy some Texas cities at night.